65, Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomás Garza, and we're coming at you a different time today. So as you've noticed, the time of this live stream jumps around a little bit. So we're here at a different time. We may catch some new people here. And if you're just joining me for the first time, thank you and welcome. And if you've joined me before, welcome back. This is a live stream that's dedicated to the teachings of A Course in Miracles. And if you are familiar with that, some of you are, this is a daily live stream. What we're doing right now is we're going through the workbook for students. And if A Course in Miracles is new to you, what this is, you may have heard about it. You may know people that have become involved in the study and practice of this thought system, curriculum. It's not a spirituality unto itself necessarily. It's not a religion. It's not something that people have to join up and believe. Rather, A Course in Miracles is a self-study curriculum. It's a self-study guide in universal spirituality. This is one of the things that, to me, has been so wonderful and so attractive about this, because I, like many of you, have practiced a lot of different spiritual traditions in my lifetime. And I was raised in a couple of different Christian traditions. I've practiced Buddhism, shamanism, different world religions. I've studied a great amount. And A Course really brings everything together for me. I have been really involved with it since 2013. I like to say it found me. In other words, I was ready for this material 8 years ago. And I've been bringing this live stream to you just about every day here on Enlightened World Network since January. So it's been a lot of fun to interact with all of you. And if you are curious about A Course in Miracles, I want this to be as interactive as we can possibly make it. I love to hear directly from you. So if you're catching this live, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for all of the likes, the hearts, the shares of this material with people in your circle that may benefit from this and that might also be very curious about it. And I love the comments. So I've been asking people different questions, and I've been asking people how spirituality has changed them. In other words, how you've transformed as a result of your spiritual practice. So if you have not yet answered that question, feel free to type that here in the comments. How has your practice, whatever that is, whatever that has looked like, how has that changed you and made you a different person? Are you more forgiving, for example? Are you more lighthearted? I mean, I hope that whatever your practice looks like, that the answer may be a resounding yes to that. So one of the beauties of A Course in Miracles for those that are new to this material is you don't have to give up your current traditions or practices. This can work and enhance right alongside everything that you're currently doing. And there are a number of people, I know several, I've worked with several that have maintained their spirituality of choice, their religion of choice, and used A Course in Miracles to help enhance their understanding, to help make their walk more rich and just more, well, more loving. I guess that's really the word that I'm looking for here, because this is all about love. A Course in Miracles is about removing the obstacles that we place to the awareness of love's presence, love being who we are. So diving into the workbook for students, we're on lesson 68 today. And lesson 68, of course, follows logically and sequentially from lesson 67. And lesson 67 is one of those ideas, and each lesson is in fact an idea that we take a look at today and practice throughout the day. The lesson 67 just lays it all out there. It says, love created me like itself. In other words, God created me like himself. Or if you prefer, herself or itself. Doesn't matter how you define God, right? Love created me like itself. So this is a statement of who we are and what has happened. And lesson 68 follows directly from that. So we really are talking about love today. Love holds no grievances. All right. That's today's idea that we're going to work with. That's love holds no grievances. So what we'll do here is let's go through the first paragraph of the commentary for lesson 68 today. Love does not hold any grievances. You were created by love like itself. So if you hold a grievance against somebody or something, you really can't know who you are. You've lost the thread, so to speak. To hold a grievance is to forget who you are. Comes right out and says this. And to hold a grievance is to see yourself as a body encased in this thing that is apparently speaking to you over this thing called a computer, and you're receiving it through the senses of this thing called the body. But to hold a grievance is to limit ourselves, basically. That's another way of looking at it. When reality is limitless, who we are, love who created us like itself, is limitless. It's abstract. A body is not abstract, right? It's finite and it has certain characteristics. We appear to be running around in it. In fact, it is a communication device through which we extend love, ideally. But as you know, we can also hold grudges and grievances against people, against things, against entire groups of people, and even against ourselves. Let's not forget that. So to hold a grievance is to see ourselves as a body. In other words, to limit ourselves. And we don't typically realize just what that means, do we? If we're really limiting ourselves, if we only see ourselves as a physical body, guess what? The physical body doesn't last. Yeah, doesn't last. We don't stay in it forever, and it is subject to the weather, no matter where you live. It's subject to aches and pains. It's subject to illness. It's subject to harsh words. It's subject to physical attack. It's quite limited. And what we're doing is when we hold a grievance, we're limiting ourselves. Love holds no grievances. Why? It's not capable of it. Either we're loving full bore, all in, or we're not loving. It really is an all or nothing proposition here. This is something that's central to the philosophy of A Course in Miracles, that if you're not extending love, then you are calling out for love. In other words, we choose either love or fear. Every moment of every day, we have a choice. We get to choose love or fear. So if we've chosen wrongly, unwisely in the past, and it's led to pain and suffering, which it has, then we have the opportunity right now in the present moment to choose yet again. And that's a beautiful thing. It's very powerful. And the more you think about that, the more deeply empowering this truth becomes, that we get to choose differently. You get to. You don't have to. You get to. Very important. Because when we choose fear, when we hold a grudge or a grievance against someone, we become afraid, don't we? Fear arises, and guilt also arises from that. What happens when you loathe somebody or a group of people? Well, let's just say we despise a certain political party, no matter what that may be. We see that a lot in today's world, which is, of course, hyperpolarized. It doesn't take an advanced degree to read your news feed and see and hear, unfortunately, people attacking each other for all kinds of things, demonizing one another, saying this person is wrong, this person is not worthy, worse things than that, right? Things I'm not going to say here live, but you know what I'm saying here. You get where I'm going with this. What happens when you hold a grievance against an entire group of people? Well, you become afraid of them, don't you? You think they're out to get you. They think that they're out to mess with your life, to cut off economic benefits, for example, that they're here to rob you and deprive you of your freedom. Well, they're not. Why? Nobody can rob us or deprive us of our freedom, but we can choose fear and we rob ourselves. Other people can't do that. We can choose. We can choose when we're triggered how we're going to respond to a situation. We can choose how we're going to react. That we can choose. And we're responsible for that. So when we hold a grievance, fear arises, guilt arises. How often have you held a grievance against somebody and felt guilty for it, thinking, gosh, I really should move on from this? I think we can all relate. And if we think long enough and hard enough, and it doesn't really usually take that long, we can think of many different instances where we held a grievance or a grudge, or we held something against somebody. We did not forgive them completely. We weren't loving. In other words, we weren't loving, and therefore we limited ourselves. So we can, the workbook tells us, we can let these grievances go. It's a choice. It's a matter of motivation. It says that right here in lesson 68. You can let your grievances go. It is a matter of motivation. Do you want to? And think about this. What would your life be like if you did not hold any grievances at all? What would your life be like if you were, in fact, totally 100% 24/7 loving? If all you did was extend love, what would your life be like then? And that is what the practice periods in today's lesson aim to show us. With these practice sessions here, we aim to reach a place, even if it's just momentarily, even if it's just for a split second. The workbook says that even if that's all that you do is reach a place for a fraction of a second where you do not hold any grievances, that will supply motivation for lifetimes. When you have just this little glimpse of the way things really are, it is more than motivation enough. I can tell you that for sure from personal experience. You may have had the same experiences. It is more than enough motivation to keep with it. So we try today with practicing the idea, love holds no grievances, to reach that place. And what I do here on the live stream is, if you're following along in the workbook, you'll notice that each day there is some commentary on how to practice the day's idea. I don't spend an awful lot of time on that here on the live because, number one, that's a limited time frame here. Most of these are 15 to 20 minutes in duration. And two, we're all adults. So if in fact you have the motivation, then you will do the practice. Quite honestly, I mean, that's really the way it works. If you are motivated to do it, you will do it. If you are not, you won't. And no one is making anybody do anything here. I'm certainly not making anybody do anything. This is a self-study curriculum, meaning you go at your own pace. And there are plenty of people in this world who start out on the workbook and stop for whatever reason and come back later on when they're more ready for it. And timing really, truly does matter. So if you have the motivation to do the practice sessions, that is absolutely wonderful. Now, if you only do a few, perfect. I mean, even just a fraction of a second is enough. This is the beauty of spiritual practice, which is why I encourage all of you, if you've begun the workbook, you're not doing it wrong. I do want to say that because people have told me this whenever I've led a group in the workbook. People drop out because they don't feel that they're doing it right. In other words, they don't feel like they're doing it correctly. Well, there is no wrong way to do it. Just your showing up and attempting even a single practice session, even if it's just repeating the day's idea to yourself, is of inestimable value. It really is. You don't lose anything. This is one of the beauties of spiritual practice in general. Nothing is lost. If you have a meditation practice, and you typically meditate for several minutes each day, and on a given day, you can only do 30 seconds, that's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Nothing is lost. Yeah. Nothing is lost. In yoga, someone's down dog looks different than someone else's down dog. My heels are probably never going to touch the ground, right? And then there are other people that are a whole lot more limber and flexible than I am, but that does not mean that I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it right, in fact, by simply showing up and practicing. And this is the beauty of spirituality. Nothing, and I do mean nothing, is lost. So what we're doing with some of these practice periods is we're scanning our mind, which shouldn't be too difficult to do, to identify people against whom we hold a grievance. That's a long list for all of us, even if we don't think it is. If you are honest with yourself, it's pretty easy to scan your mind and think about people and think about, yeah, I hold a grievance against this person. I hold a grievance against this political figure, for example, right? I hold a grievance against my mother, for example, or my sister, for example, my brother, my aunt, my next door neighbor, my next door neighbor's dog. Whether the grievance is monumentally large or small, it's still a grievance. And what we're doing here is we're reorienting and retraining ourselves. We're thinking of these people against whom we hold a grievance or a grudge and say, I would see you as my friend, that I may remember you're a part of me and come to know myself. It's a lot here, right? We're holding this person in mind and saying, I would see you as a friend, that I may remember you're a part of me. There's no separation of any kind. And come to know myself. When we forgive ourselves. Because ultimately, there is no separate person to forgive. Practice like this, a practice like forgiveness, a practice like extending gratitude, for example, whatever that looks like for you, is a way of coming to know yourself. Remember, love created me like itself. Love created you like itself. And love holds no grievances. Therefore, when we notice that we're holding one, we apply the antidote. Because as A Course tells us, someone is either extending love or they're calling out for love. What's the appropriate response when someone calls out for love? To extend love. This is a very, very powerful, a very deep lesson here. And it's so much fun for me to talk about this. Now, let's see who's joining me live here today. Now, if you're catching this on the replay, feel welcome to type in the comments how your spiritual practice has changed you. And what I'm going to do on here is I'm going to ask this very same question every week, every few days, so that we think about this. People quit A Course in Miracles, and that's what we're talking about right now. People quit other spiritual practices too, because they don't feel that they're doing it right. They don't feel that they can do what's asked. And that's unfortunate, because each of us can, even if we're only capable of doing 15 seconds worth of practice, like I've just mentioned here today, nothing is ever lost. That's very important. Nothing is ever lost. So if you have questions about A Course in Miracles, feel welcome to type that into the comment thread here. I do check these from time to time throughout the day. And thank you to all of you who are tuning in here. And for those of you catching this on the replay, just a reminder to ask yourself, okay, how has my spiritual practice changed me? I'd love to hear about that. And we will see you back here tomorrow. Again, this live stream is daily. Check the show guide on Enlightened World Network's Facebook page. There, every day, at the beginning of each day, is the day's programming. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great weekend and a beautiful Friday.